Welcome to the Big L, your unofficial source for Libertarian Party news, arcana, and information for the liberty-minded political junkie. Find us at BigLPodcast.com. Here's your host, Libertarian Party insider and the pink flame of liberty, Caryn Ann.
If you could introduce yourself and just give a little background or whatever you'd like to say, I'd love that.
Okay. So my name is Raymon Doane, and I am the U.S. Senate candidate for the Libertarian Party for the state of Colorado. I am a Denver native, so born and raised here. I lived in Colorado for essentially most of my life. Had some brief stints outside of the state, but since I've been back, I have been active in politics and within my community. Essentially, what I'm running for, not only just as a libertarian, but just as a human being, is to really unify this nation. As many of you may have seen during the DNC beginning of the convention, they kind of copied the Libertarian Party. You know, we had a virtual convention, and here they are now trying to do the same. But that was expected. What else was expected was the fact that they kind of dissed third parties. They said, hey, you need to vote for our candidate, which is typical politics. But as of right now, we need to vote for policies. We need to vote for sound, actual governance, not just we need to get Joe Biden in there for somebody who's been in there for over 40 plus years. And we're just talking about president. I'm running against the former governor and a current incumbent on the Republican Party named Cory Gardner. He has not helped this state at all. Matter of fact, most people can say that they've never really seen the man. That includes the people within his own city, unless you have some money and you're providing him just because of special interest. But overall, that is what I'm running for, to truly unify this nation. Because as Donald Trump said, we have nothing to lose, but we have everything to gain. And he didn't say that last part. He only said, well, we have to lose, but we have everything to gain here. And that is to vote a libertarian with sound principles. And we can actually make this happen. If not this year, it'll be the next. Not the next, it'll be eventually. Because the people need something, and they need something that's much better. And it should be now.
Definitely. So you were at our Douglas County meeting. Oh, Lord, what was it, like 2-3 weeks ago? And though we had met briefly at some socials here, then I think, that was the first time I really got to hear you for any extended period of time. And I was really impressed. So that's definitely why I want to have you on, because I really enjoyed what you had to say. And I thought you were a very good spokesperson for our position. And I always thought, when I'd seen you at other events too, that even without talking to you, you always presented yourself very professionally. And, as somebody, if you see you as a candidate, you'd be like, hey, this looks like a guy who takes himself seriously and would do a good job. And then when I finally did get to hear you talk, the talk matched the look, which is sometimes doesn't happen. So how long have you been a libertarian?
Since 16. I did change to unaffiliated when I ran for a local seat, a nonpartisan seat. So I wanted to keep pretty much that nonpartisan value, just to say, not affiliated with any party, wanted to kind of keep that mindset, but come to find out every other politician really doesn't do that. So essentially I just switched back right after that. So.
And unaffiliated, it's kind of in Colorado, it's actually quite popular here. And when I'm talking with people, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, who've left one of the parties or they're unhappy. So they go and they register unaffiliated. And I say to them, or independent, that it does send a message for sure when the old party sees someone leaving their roles, but it sends a very unclear message because society is so fractured right now. I mean, we have some people who want full out communism. So an unaffiliated, all that means is they're not happy with the two choices, but it doesn't say in what direction they're not happy. For all anyone knows, those unaffiliated could want, again, full out communism. You don't know. So I know sometimes what people will find party affiliation, particularly once they've been burned by one of the other parties, very distasteful. It does send a signal, though, what direction you're looking to go, even if you don't agree with entirely everything no one's going to agree with everything any party stands for. But at least when you register Libertarian, what I tell people is you're saying at least what direction that you want to go. And obviously you can still vote however you want. If you don't like the Libertarian candidate, you're not under any obligation to vote for them. So I always encourage people, independent, it's better than staying with the old parties, but barely better, because you're not really saying what you want. Bernie Sanders is an independent.
Yes.
So if you're like a freedom, very, libertarian independent, you really want to be in the same group. Not that, I'm not putting the man down. I'm just saying his philosophies are not compatible for the most part. Some of them, in fact, are, as we find we have a lot in common with a bunch of people. So when it comes to your particular race, and before I ask that, anyone who's in the audience, if you have any questions, if you're viewing this from my secretary page and you type in, I should be able to see your questions. If you're on my personal page, I think there's a bug in StreamYard and I might not see them. So if I don't acknowledge you, that means I didn't see it. And go over to the secretary page. And so I will be taking questions from the audience, and we'll stick them up on screen. So I do see you, Mark, and I will get to those, get to that particular one, because I already had that on my agenda. But so what kind of platform are you running on? What's your message when you go out and speak with voters?
Pretty much I'm focusing on, really my platform, I guess, is to focus on three key issues. Legalization of marijuana, because that really hits home, but make sure that it's on a national level. I think because Colorado has grown so much, the fact that we have so many people from different states and marijuana hasn't been legalized there. And I'm not going to say they moved here strictly for that, but that might have been an underlying factor. That's really hitting hard. Immigration, not necessarily just full-blown open borders, because right now with our executive leader, we're not really making friends. We weren't making friends before, but now it seems as if we're just asking for enemies. Like we're just saying, hey, do you want to be my enemy? That's a problem. So we should still participate in a vetting process, but still actually promote immigration to a point where if you want to live here, you're definitely free to do so, as long as, you practice personal responsibility. You're able to take care of yourself. If you're not able to take care of yourself, you're able to find somebody, just not us, through taxation. And that's where we want to really change that mindset. And then the third is to reduce our foreign affairs, and not necessarily through diplomacy, but through wars. We should always be practicing diplomacy, but when we're in everybody else's business and it seems as if our military is everywhere but in our own country, that is a problem, because not only is that a huge expense from a financial standpoint, but from a livelihood standpoint. Both of my parents my mom still serves in the Army. My father served in the Navy for 15 years. My mom's been in there for 30 plus. So I know there are other individuals that are my age, my peers, that currently serve. And if they were to come home to their children, essentially, I could imagine myself being younger, seeing my mom miss my birthdays, not being home, my father both being gone at the same time, her and my father both being gone at the same time. So we had to live with my grandmother. And at any point in time, their lives could have been taken away for wars that they shouldn't have been in. So we really have to look at family values and to say, do we really want these people to lose their lives over nonsense or over some reason that's not our own? So we really should be looking towards that, because I can honestly say I've seen my mother more as an adult than I have as a child. And I don't want that to be a permanent feeling for other children because they've lost their parent in war. I've been blessed because my parents are both still alive. I love them to death. But if at any given point in time, those individuals lose their lives, that's children without a father. That's, mother or father without a son. That's just how it is. And we don't need that to be that way.
Off kind of on a tangent, just because it's an issue that always interests me. And I and I don't know whether it does or it doesn't interest you. But as a woman in the Libertarian Party, I always want to see more women in the party. And now as a minority in the party, do you think that we should be doing more to reach the African American community?
I'm not going to say that we should be doing more, because the message really does hit home with the African American community. When the reason why I changed because my former affiliation was a Republican to Libertarian, is during my first ever political race, I continued to see people say, "Hey, why are you a Republican? Black people aren't supposed to be Republicans." And so I kind of had to always answer that question, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. But where the problem truly came is when I switched to Libertarian. Nobody knew about the Libertarian Party. The way I learned about it was through Gary Johnson. The fact that it was like, you want to be left alone. That's pretty much what people have been asking for decades, years, centuries, really. And it resonated with me. That's something I thought the Republican Party, proposed, as there's a lot of self-proclaimed libertarians that are in there. But when you hear that message, Libertarian, it's about in action, not in just words. So when you say that you're Libertarian, you just can't be a part of the Republican Party just for, I'm not going to try to cuss here, but itches and giggles.
Oh, no, I don't have a problem with it. If your image, you don't want that. But let me just tell you, I might slip a few. It won't bother me.
Okay. But yeah, you really just can't say that. It's always about action. I'm not a person that just wants to hear the pandering. And that's what most people hopefully don't want to hear either when it comes to politics in general. So when we speak about action, we say, hey, we're going to promote volunteerism. We're not going to promote force. That's what I enjoy hearing. And that's why I became a Libertarian. And I know there's a lot of Black people that like that message too. It's just not just reaching out to them, but it's really making sure that they're aware. And the only way I've learned that they can be aware is, one, we have to speak outside of our echo chamber. I know that when I go to the Libertarian meetings, great people, great times, but outside of the meetings, we have to continue, to campaign, show your face. Even if they don't know that you're a Libertarian, just be out doing something for the community. And that's what I like to see, from a lot of Libertarians. And then when they ask who you are, you'll be like, oh, Republican? No. Typically, I always get asked if I'm a Democrat based on my talking points when I speak about legalization of marijuana and we'll say immigration. But when it comes to Pro-2A, they're like, oh, wait a second, we're going to stop right there. But a lot of Black people they're not against guns at all. So I think truly reaching African-American communities is not a difficult task. It's just that we have to continue to persevere and actually do it.
And I'm glad you brought up the Second Amendment, because apparently in Colorado, there had been some misinformation that went around about your position. And you know how it is. A lie can, what they say, a lie can run 10 yards while the truth is still putting its shoes on. So every opportunity I'd like to give you, if you could you say what your stance is? Because some people might not have heard, you rebut some of the rumors that have been going around. So I like to give you that opportunity to straighten that out once again.
No problem. So my stance on the 2A is it should not be infringed. What I've learned is a lot of people strictly put the Second Amendment to just guns. And I always say you should be able to protect yourself with whatever weapon that you can choose. Because sometimes if, let's say, use your own hands. I've been lucky enough to know a couple of, I won't say professional fighters, but semi-professional. And your weapons can be registered. Your hands can be registered as weapons. Your feet can be registered as weapons. So as long as you have the means to protect yourself, that's why I'm pro-2A in any way, shape, or form. If you have a weapon, a gun, fantastic. Knives, fantastic. If I guess I'm not going to go and say a flamethrower, if you could carry one around with you all the time, that's fine and dandy. But hopefully you don't really are put in a position to use it. And hopefully you're trained to use it, because we don't want houses to burn down our property, because then you'll still be violating libertarian principles. But yeah, you should be able to use your weapon responsibly. Train yourself, arm yourself, make sure that you have proper discernment on when to use it, because that is the ultimate key. A lot of people think that, and it's kind of hard to get people off of this outside of people who want Second Amendment rights protected. They just think that they're gun happy people and they're just going to randomly use them unresponsibly, irresponsibly is not a word, irresponsibly. And that's where we have to really knock down that stereotype. We should promote responsibility, as we do with everything else, when it comes to weapons. And as long as you do that, you're going to be able to convince other people, hey, we're not using them irresponsibly.
Awesome. And just so that some of the people watching know, I'm going to wrap with you for about 5 minutes more, and then I'm going to get to some of their questions so they don't think I'm ignoring. But there was a few things that I wanted to get out front. So how's it going with your fundraising? And I wanted to give you an opportunity when you answer, if you could tell where people could go if they'd like to donate to your campaign. But I'd like to hear how it's going and what your goals are and what you're doing with the funds you're raising.
So our fundraising it's going slowly, a little bit slower than I expected, but I think come the 29th, when Jo Jorgensen arrives here and she brings her presence and I'm able to speak in front of that audience, I think our fundraising is going to go through the roof. Outside of that, right now, we're not near our goal. We're not near our goal, but if you want to donate, you can definitely go to my website, Doane. That is my last name, Doane, 4, Colorado.com. And you can definitely donate there. We're starting to get a lot of non-monetary contributions.
Libertarians are always good at that.
So that it's definitely good. It's helpful. And if in reality, if we didn't need cash contributions just to participate in the debate, because we need $50,000 just straight cash to participate in a debate with the two major parties. So that is one of our goals. But non-monetary contributions are fantastic. If we could run off of that alone, I would not worry about anything. And everything else is going great. Gas, traveling the state. Right now I'm at home. I just changed because I was kind of sweaty, so I'm not in formal attire. But everything else is going good. We'll be in the mountains. We should be hitting the western slope this week, and hopefully the fires that are going on aren't too bad. That prevent that, because it kind of prevented that from happening last week. If not, we'll just have to do a reschedule. We'll focus on the Eastern Plains. We'll go up north and go down south again. We'll do everything we can to continue to spread the message of this campaign. So it's going pretty good. Time-wise, everything else, it doesn't seem like there's enough time in the day. I still work a regular job, get off, talk to people, talk to more people, don't sleep, get home. So it's going well, though. Come November, it can't come soon enough, but hopefully get enough time that we can actually finish everything that we want to, and hopefully maybe pull out a miracle win.
Awesome. Or at least, more people will hear the libertarian message. And as I said, I think you're a great representative of it. And though I'm not into the identity politics the way the Democrats are, I do think representation is important, to see different kinds of people, because we have a reputation too much of just being the party of old rich white men. Not that there's anything wrong with old rich white men. If they want to throw some money your way, I hope they do. But representation does matter. And I didn't used to think that so much until I started visiting a lot of state conventions, and people brought their little daughters to meet me. And I saw the reaction of these little girls who were interested in politics, where they saw somebody that was like them, and it helped inspire them. So it does matter. We'd like to think it doesn't, but in a lot of ways it does. And I think we're foolish not to recognize that in a healthy way, not in the very unhealthy way sometimes that it's done when people are using it to beat other people up. That's wrong. But I think we're foolish to not recognize that, the younger people, get inspired by people they can relate to. And whether that's been by us, somebody who has the same hobbies or someone that has the same heritage, we have that in our DNA to be attracted to that. And I absolutely did not understand that until I started talking to a bunch. When I say little girls, we're talking 5, 6 years old, but they come back year after year to see me. And I was just so inspired by that. And it really did do a shift in my worldview as to how it is important to be a role model. Do you mind saying how much you've raised so far? If you don't want to, that's okay. I'm just always curious as to how libertarian campaigns are doing.
So as of right now, I'm going to have to take a look again. We're around a little over $3,000 in cash. Non-monetary contributions, just from what was promised versus what, has actually been received is completely different. We're at about 4,600, but what's promised is 14,000. So as of right now, if we can truly earmark that stuff, hopefully by the end of this month, like they actually send it.
Yeah.
We'll be doing great. I know we actually just received something in the mail, like for a giveaway. So I don't know if you're familiar with like some old Bronco envelopes, like from when they won the Super Bowl. So I'll be posting that on my social media. Somebody sent that to us, so we're going to be giving that randomly to some people who donate to our campaign. So we're going to be sending those off. So.
All right. Awesome. So great. I'm personally going to, I can't give much, but I'm personally going to be donating after the show here. And I would challenge everyone, even if you can give a lot, please do, but don't think that any gifts don't matter. I encourage everyone, if you see a candidate you like, try to donate at least something, because not only does it help their campaign, it helps morale too. You know, when people step up and put money on the line for you, I'm sure then you have some support and you're not out there just doing it on your own. So I do hope everyone who listens to this now or in the future will consider going to your website and helping you out if they like what you had to say. So let's go to some of these questions. Now, answer them completely honestly. I might give you a little bit of pushback. This might be the little bit of pushback on point. I realize you realize this as well, because I heard this in your Colorado Public Radio interview, that there's quite a wide spectrum with libertarians. And actually, I'm going to start it off with a question of my own, with an answer that you gave on that show that had some people, I don't want to say upset. Libertarians get upset over everything. You know that our superpower is getting all lathered up. But I think I'm going to have an unexact quote, but you'll remember where you had said something like, we're not all anti-government people, or something to that extent. And as now, me personally, I'm an anti-government person. Philosophically, I'm an anarchist. I think you already knew that. And there's this wide spectrum. So I'd like to know how you handle that, or how you see these various points of view holding together. And like, what is your view on people who might be more anti-government than you are in the party? I can tell you my personal view is anyone who wants to reduce the government, I work with them. You know, I don't have purity tests or things like that. But I'd be interested in your particular point of view on that subject.
So I would put myself as more of a pragmatic libertarian. As you probably already know too, I do work for the government, and I do see a small need for it to still exist. I am a firm believer in minimal government, simply for the fact that there are still things that should be protected and that the government should govern over. The military, as much as I just spoke about, foreign affairs, I do believe that if we are attacked, we more than likely will go to war. And all of us on a strictly individual basis aren't just gonna randomly be able to pinpoint who's who, where's where, and be able to strategize instantly against a singular enemy who's already prepared to destroy us. So I see government necessary in that way. I also see government necessary to protect property rights. For example, if you entered a contract with somebody and they break it, if there wasn't a government to help, go through the court system, go through the legal system, even though it might not, you might not necessarily see justice in the legal system as of right now. But if it wasn't even remotely available, pretty much it just becomes all out shootout. So he said, she said, and who can force their will upon that person to actually either maintain that contract, whether that be the person who didn't break it or the person who broke it can say, you know what, I'm not going to pay you. I'm not going to give you what you wanted. And they could possibly, again, use force, try to take your life or continue to take your property on top of that and just not give it back. So I see government necessary in those varieties. But as right now, where you continue to see overtaxation, where you continue to see these government mandates for the pandemic, things of that nature, yes, that's definitely government overreach, and I would like to see that rescinded.
Okay. Just a slight interaction on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too deep in the philosophical weeds here, but just in general, because I think we actually agree more than we disagree, but I might be defining government differently than you. I see a difference between the state, not meaning the state of Colorado, the state as in, the government apparatus that we have now. I see a difference between state and government. For instance, churches have governments. That term is actually, I don't know your religious background, but church government is actually like a thing in Christian circles. So I'm not really anti-government's probably the wrong word, because I think government's inevitable. Whenever you have any group of people united for any kind of cause, they're going to have a governance. I'm on the governing body of the Libertarian Party. We have a government within the Libertarian Party. The state, however, is different. The state claims a monopoly over the enforcement of rights, whether the people whose rights they're allegedly enforcing want it or not. Whereas a government's voluntary. A government you opt into rather than it being like the Hotel California. So that's kind of the difference. So when I say I'm anti-government, I really mean I'm anti-state. I think government's a good thing because rights do have to be protected. It's just, how is it set up? Do we have a monopoly on it? Because I don't like the people that are enforcing my rights right now. I would love it if there was a competitor that would enforce my rights. But unfortunately, our state doesn't allow competitors, and then they steal from me to pay for the service that I think they're doing a shitty job at. So that's kind of the difference between the two views. So it's a little bit deep in the weeds, but just wanted to clarify that, because I certainly am not like advocating for the purge, or Somalian warlords, nothing like that. So let's go to the questions. So first, Mark Montoni, who I know you know very, very well. So Rabbi Mark Montoni, he's not really a rabbi. It's a joke that we have. But when you see him, do call him rabbi. The rabbi asks, is taxation theft?
As of how it's conducted right now, yes. When you give your money, or let me rephrase that, when the government continues to ask for money from you and they do not actually do anything that you ask them to do, then yes, it is theft. For me, my profession is taxation. So I'm very familiar, especially working on the collection side of things, of actually garnishing people's wages and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Okay, I was trying to figure out how to get it on the screen. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to get it off the screen, though Mark might be up there the whole time. So do you think it's ever proper to take money from people for services if they don't consent to having the money taken from them?
They shouldn't, but I think this is where even one of my slight disagreements within a Libertarian Party, even though there are some people that agree with me, and I'm certain that there are people that disagree with me as well. If you ask to participate in, taxation, then by definition, it's not theft. So it's one of those fine lines. And
Oh, I figured out how to get it off. Wonderful.
Okay.
So, okay.
It's one of those fine lines where it's hard to describe, but yes, after you said if they don't consent to it, that is correct. But I think that's where we would have to ask, do you continue to use the utilities that are provided? And if the majority of people, it's like letting someone live in your house, rent free. If at any point in time that you decide to charge them rent and they continue to want to stay, are they stealing from you even though, they're still continuing to live in your house? And I think that's when it comes to residency. It's one of those, I guess, talking points where it can, granted, I don't know how much time we can have because we can talk about
I don't have a limit. It's more your limit. I usually try to keep it around an hour, but I don't have a limit. I always love these kinds of discussions.
Okay. So, like in taxation, and just in one of my old tax classes, there's this concept of that property tax is technically the only type of tax that is valid because it's based on a finite amount of resources. Income is variable, sales tax variable. Pretty much any type of tax outside of property tax is variable. Your property is finite. You know what it is. You know how it can be assessed. It has a value. People can actually place a certain dollar amount on it based on how the market dictates. And that's something that, within libertarian circles, we always say the market provides. The same thing can go with housing. The same thing can go with land. So when you say is taxation theft, yes. When you don't consent to it, just to keep the answer short, yes. However, if you continue to use the utilities provided through said taxation through people who voluntarily decided to pay for it, then at that point, you are technically stealing from them. So if you're forced to use those, though, because the government, state won't allow a competitor? True, that is true. But at some point, you have to ask, do you want to live in that area? Because if, let's say, you bought property in that area,
mm-hmm.
by definition, you do not have to leave your property. And let's say the government's like, you know what? You can stay in that house for the rest of your life. You never will have to pay any taxes. You can work from home. You can get utilities tax-free, your energy bill, your water bill. But if you decide to start driving, if you decide to start doing anything else, riding the bus, if you decide to do any of that, you have to participate in our tax society. So that is the argument that I know people have presented to me, especially when I'm on a campaign trail. Mm-hmm. And I've had a couple of libertarians come into my office as well too, when I actually saw people face to face, or I guess you can say my enlarged cubicle, and they're like, "Yeah, we looked you up because we saw your name hanging on here." So I'm like, "Yeah, I understand." So outside it out, without getting too deep into what I can do for them in a taxation standpoint, working for the government. Those are the talking points that are presented from people within the Libertarian Party and then outside of the Libertarian Party. So it's always a great discussion, but I don't think you're necessarily going to get any collaboration fully with saying to get rid of taxes completely. So that's my goal, is to truly minimize them to the point where people can understand that, okay, we don't need all these welfare systems because now nobody's really on welfare. We're actually creating nonprofit, or we're allowing these nonprofit entities to help take care of these people without you having to pay income tax. Maybe someday we can actually get to the point to actually practice Georgism, where only property taxes are there. Maybe only sales tax, maybe only income tax, maybe just one type of tax at the very bare minimum, but I don't see taxes going away. I am a firm believer in Benjamin Franklin's stance on the only thing guaranteed in life are death and taxes. I just want to make sure that I live as long as I can before I die, and I'm not taxed to death.
Funny thing is, though, to really go off in the weeds, if you're following the latest in medical things, they're starting to talk about death not being inevitable. So maybe there's hope for taxes too.
Well, if that happens, I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah, they're talking. Not that I'm so sure. That is just an interesting thing where they talk about functional immortality, and transhumanism and all that. But okay, we're really going into the weeds there. Dave asks, let me see if I can get it on the screen, because StreamYard changed its interface on me and I don't like it. There we go. So what is your stand on national defense? You kind of touched on it before, but maybe you could expand a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what he means, so you're going to have to guess a bit.
I'll just say pretty much what I continue to say throughout my campaign here is the fact that we should be practicing diplomacy more than just going out to war. So we should definitely be promoting peace rather than all of the activities that we're constantly doing. If we can actually interact with our allies on a more collaborative basis. So let's say, as of right now, we have bases in quite a few countries. I'm not so certain on the actual number, but let's say we'll throw in Germany. Right now, I know that Donald Trump was preparing to remove some troops from Germany, and he did not speak to the prime minister or the chancellor. I can't remember. I think it would be chancellor for Germany.
Yeah, I think it is chancellor.
So because of that, you actually ruining alliances. So we should be trying to strengthen our alliances. And again, that's through diplomacy. Make sure that we actually talk to people and just not go gun ho, say, hey, we're going to remove $80,000, troops. And they're like, what? Let us know what you're doing so that there can be a transition. So definitely promote peace, promote diplomacy, strengthen our relationships with our allies. Something I will give Donald Trump props on, even though that's far and few between.
Broken clock is right twice a day.
He actually tried to make peace with North Korea. And I know former leaders might have done so on a semi-decent basis, but their personalities match. So I think that's how that worked. But sadly, he's also created more enemies with China. And I'll just speak on them. Like we've had, people calling this the Chinese virus. When you promote that, even as true as it possibly could be, and I'm not going to promote any of that type of stereotyping or anything while I'm speaking here, but the fact that if you're going to actually make them an enemy, and that's one of the few nations that we cannot afford to go to war with, especially right now. Mm-hmm. Our population is aging. We have a lot of, mental health issues that we're still trying to clear. Our population is nowhere in comparison to their numbers. They are technology savvy. We do have a lot of overseas manufacturing that is there. So if we did go to war, all they have to do is say, stop manufacturing stuff. And then boom, we're kind of screwed here. Our prices of products go up. We already saw what happened when he enacted tariffs. And now imagine if we actually go to war with a nation that can beat us. That's one of the few people we should not be pissing off, and it seems like he's doing a very good job at that.
This might seem somewhat like a tangent, but I was just looking at it today. What do you think, speaking of China, about Trump wanting to ban TikTok, if you know anything about it? If you don't know anything about it, that's okay. But it's because Chinese government spying, all that. I was wondering if you had a position on it, because I've been trying to figure out what my position is on it. I really not sure on that.
No, I don't think he should try to ban TikTok. That one, I do stand firm on that. The fact that he has, and it's alleged spying. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee. I do not work in cybersecurity. Again, mine is taxation, so I can say how much money people have made off of TikTok, but I can't speak on any of those cybersecurity issues. What we should be recognizing is that if TikTok is spying on us, what other apps that are based in China could be doing the same thing? That is just one app. And if you have an Android, if you have an iPhone, how many others are there? What is their use? I think TikTok really got the mainstream headlines because it is widely used. I almost began using it for my campaign just to start creating videos. But once he started to say, oh, we're going to ban it, I was like, well, no need for me to get on now. But we really need to start paying attention. If that is his mindset, there are going to be a whole lot more apps than TikTok, and that can set a bad precedent. And considering the fact that our government can spy on us, Patriot Act.
Oh yeah, well that's a given, right? I guess the concern was, I'm not an expert in Chinese law by any means, but apparently any entity, any Chinese company is required to comply with, if the government wants them to spy, they have to. Like there's some kind of strange requirement there. So you're correct. Any app then with ownership in China then would have the same issue. And that's interesting. What about things manufactured in China then? Are they required to put spy devices in them? I didn't even think about that. I just started thinking about this issue like 2 hours ago, but that's a good point.
No, definitely. We have to pay attention to that. And we're only speaking about TikTok. Like I know from China, but we have a lot of other products based out of, Thailand. We're talking about Vietnam. China does actually have interactions with with Laos, Cambodia. So what if they just rebase like that particular company, rebase their operations in one of those nations and they continue to do the same thing? It's really just finding the loophole, and I don't think that's understood. Our government should be suggesting that we stop using apps, kind of similar to the pandemic mandates.
Yeah.
Suggest that we stop doing this because this is something that can happen. If not, if they're going to do it as a mandate, then they're no better than the Chinese government. They are starting communism in that fashion.
But I could see they were saying that government employees on any government-owned device shouldn't have that kind of app installed on it. And that sounds reasonable, though I would hope that would have been a rule already that you don't have Facebook or any of that stuff on your government device. But apparently that's not a rule because they were talking about that. And I was like, well, okay, that seems like common sense, but
it is a rule. I just think it depends on what, I guess, section that you work in, because every section is different. Like even for my own, I have my work laptop. I do not do anything on my work laptop that is related to me personally, unless they're asking me for my taxes, like during my yearly evaluation or something. When I submit my taxes, then I'll be like, yes, I filed my taxes, etc. Checkbox, send it off. That'll come from me to me, so I can send it to them. So that's something that's not necessarily, it's personal, but it's mandated because I have to do my taxes to work there. But there's no Facebook on my stuff. This is my personal / other work laptop. Yeah. So I can do whatever I want on this one because it is not through the government. But I do see this question. So
yeah, I stuck one up from Michael. I'm glad, and I was hoping you could see it on your end. So there you go. I'll read it out loud for the podcast people when I do format this for my podcast. Michael Downs asks, how should federal pensions, civilian and military, be handled from a libertarian standpoint after shrinking the government and lowering or eliminating taxes?
Something that I am big on is maintaining contracts. So when you make a promise, you should do your hardest to keep it, but make sure that people understand that if you're unable to keep this promise, lay out why. Kind of similar to how the state pension system is, with PARA. So this will actually be a pretty decent question. Once you reduce government, you reduce employees. You'll pay out the people who are currently on the pensions. You'll pay out those promises that are made. And then for the future employees, you just say, hey, you're going to go on more of what is called, something that I'm on is a defined contribution. So instead of being part of a defined benefit where you're guaranteed a pension for the rest of your life, you're going to be defined contribution based on what you put in. Similar to, how Social Security should be. Should.
Oh, that's the operative word.
But that's pretty much how it should happen. Once begin to lower taxes, again, I don't believe that taxes will be completely eliminated. So more than likely, there'll still be some positions based off of taxation, but you will probably also have some positions based off of fees. Hopefully, not too many are based off of fines, if you can eliminate that, because government still functions off of four things. That's taxes, fees, fines, and leases. There's a variety of taxes, variety of fees, variety of fines, and a variety of leases. At the very least, nobody compares or complains about leases, except for maybe libertarians.
We complain about everything.
Outside of that, yeah, like fees, you'll probably see government employees' wages still paid by fees and possibly fines, and minimal version of taxes if we're able to reduce it to a standpoint or to a point where we don't have to rely on too heavily anymore.
And I'm just going to put a few comments up. They're not necessarily questions, so you can comment on them. Here we go, Mark Montoni.
No worries. I have several jobs, Mark. The government does not pay me that much money, so I do like notary signing agent stuff. I know people see me do bar promos. Sometimes you might see me as a model. Hopefully, you won't see one of the old catalogs I posed in. But yeah, I do a lot of stuff.
I've never seen Mark use so many emojis, so that's amazing. And this is just a comment where David Davis is saying how Iowa's set up, which is interesting. When I used to live in Florida before Colorado, and I wasn't very political before, and Florida has partisan voter registration. So does Colorado. And then when I learned that some states don't, I don't know. It shocked me because you tend to think everywhere's like what you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. But a lot of, I think it's like 19-ish. It's between 15 and 20 states in the country don't have partisan registration. But isn't that interesting? Let me put that back up there again a second, because something really annoyed me about that. How can you have a non-party political organization and have two parties that are part of it?
That one confuses me.
Yeah, that I don't know anything about Iowa because it's never been in my region, but yeah, that's interesting. And here's some more comments from David Davis. I don't agree with him, but that is a position that I hear from more constitutional libertarians.
It's a sound point. So I think where, again, I guess, when we had that little, I don't want to call it a rant, but that whole speaking point about taxation,
mm-hmm.
Eventually, I think when we get to that point, because we're definitely going to keep fighting. I know I'll be advocating for, even in my position, Mark, I will always be advocating for lower taxes for everybody. I might not necessarily be able to speak on state issues when it comes to taxation, because I know when I'm asked about it, I have to kind of plead the fifth on that. But I'll always be advocating for lower taxes, because one thing I can say, and I've been blessed to actually have this opportunity, is when I've worked in that position and I saw people face to face. I've taught sales tax classes and I've seen the confusion on people's faces. Like, how are we supposed to know this? Like, you're starting a business that you're already just you saved up money for. You're still having to, go register, get an EIN with the IRS, which is the only thing that's really free, is getting that. After that, you have to go register with the Secretary of State, get a sales tax license. Then if you don't know how to file them, if you don't want to listen to me teach a sales tax class, granted, I don't do that anymore, you got to pay an accountant. And that's just all administrative stuff. And we're not even speaking about all the technical stuff that you still have to do for your business. You still have to do marketing. You have to get people to buy your stuff, whether it be service or good related. So now you're worrying about all of these administrative tasks. And yet you still haven't even gotten to the technical stuff. So it is definitely one of those things where we need to continue to fight for that and pay attention to how we're going to move towards the future.
Yeah, that whole thing with businesses, and again, speaking towards disadvantaged communities, that is what really like burns my biscuits. Is there's so many enterprising young people that would start businesses, but the barriers to entry are just insane. And where I saw a lot of this is I come from South Florida, just north of Miami-Dade County. And I got to interact a lot there with the Cuban community, including going way back, like Cubans that came with the Mariel boat lift, like hardcore people that got just jumped here by Castro. When I say here, I'm still used to saying here, even though I'm not in Florida anymore. But I have to tell you, that whole community, some of the most industrious people I've ever met in my whole life. Like you'd have one person that'd have 10 businesses. It's like all the side hustles, but they supported their families that way. But most of them had to be done pretty much illegally because there isn't pass to have your own business. And I work in insurance defense, and a lot of times we will do cases where, maybe there was a home robbery or something like that, and people have to prove ownership of the things that they're claiming got stolen. And we'd ask them for support, or can you prove you bought this by showing your bank account receipt or whatever? You want to know what? That community didn't put money in the bank because they learned from Castro, you just don't do that. Their money was under their mattress. And that's just like the underground economy that they felt even coming over to this country that they had to still do, because we like to think we're free. But if your average young person can't start a business easily and make their own way in the world without all of these encumbrances, you're not free. I mean, that's freedom there, to be able to go and make your own way to support yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's so difficult right now. And people don't realize this, but it's the big companies that love the regulations. People go, oh no, it costs them money. They don't like it. Of course they like it, because it keeps, once you get to a certain size and you can afford it, you want more regulations so that there can't be young upstart competitors.
Yeah, we see that with the oil industry. So
yeah. I didn't realize that. It's somewhat counterintuitive, but it is in fact the way it is. Wayne had asked for you to clarify your position on the Second Amendment, but you already did that, because I got right on that. Because actually, I'm kind of really upset that that misinformation went around, because honestly, I told you this in the party ballot. I originally did not vote for you because that's what I heard. And I don't vote for gun grabbers for anything ever. And then when I learned that wasn't your position, I did vote for you in the primary, because I was like, I felt like I was lied to, and I was really upset about that. So I'm kind of like your cheerleader in clearing that up, because I was one of the people that I regret the way I had voted in our internal race. I love Galen. He runs every single time, but he doesn't run an active campaign. And I'll vote for the active campaign any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And you're running a real campaign, which is what we need. Now Wayne has another question here. What? Come on now. There we go. I think you already answered this, but I don't want to keep putting my husband off.
No worries. That is a yes.
Yep.
Wayne, that is what I am on. Actually.
Yeah. So go back and listen to the recording somewhere. And he did get into that for a bit here. And then we got another kind of smart alecky comment from Mark, but let's go for it.
Dad bod. Oh.
There is a Dad Bods calendar. If you haven't seen it, it is great. It's a fundraiser for the Libertarian Party of South Carolina. What you need to do is well, if you do it.
I don't know. Do I have to look at the calendar? I'm joking.
Vermin Supreme's in the last one. I mean, it's really and good fun. And again,
I might do it.
Yeah, a great fundraiser. And I think that is it for the questions. I'm going to give, now that everyone knows I've gotten through them, I'm going to give a few other chances here for anyone who might want to ask a question. And I'm trying to think if I have any others. When do you have any events coming up? Like appearances or something where people can come and Mark says no. No, we've all told you, Mark. If you do it, Raymond will consider it. It's a good fundraiser, so we're signing you up. I'm going to be writing Matt Hicks, Mark, to say you'll be in the next one. Thank you very much for your service. Okay, so your events, Raymond, let us know.
So as of right now, I plan on being in Conifer for the Jeffco meeting that they're having there. I think that's tomorrow, I believe. I'm gonna have to relook. And then Thursday, I'll be in El Paso County. Once I'm informed of the location, I will be posting that on my Facebook page as well. Then Friday, I will actually be preparing to again go to the Western Slope. Hopefully, the fires aren't too bad. I am planning on doing that, so I'll be in Delta, Montrose, Grand Junction during the weekend. Now, might possibly be able to stay out there later. This depends on what I'm able to do with my job, because since I do work from home now, I'm able to, be mobile. So if I'm able to see, like, if I don't have to go into any office or do something random where I have to be home, then yeah, I'll probably stay out there a little bit longer, because that's one thing I've learned, especially campaigning, this being my third campaign. You have to be out there. And I was lucky enough to the point where I didn't have to go through a primary the first 2 times. This time I did have to go to one. So, it's definitely showing my face, doing all of that, getting out there. But now that it's versus just being Denver and it's the whole state, I've learned that there's a lot of driving, and I haven't been doing that much driving in a long time. So my music playlist has definitely expanded, and yeah, this is definitely different. So for that event, Grand Junction, I do know Joel Jorgensen rally next, the 29th. I will be speaking at the rally and at the gala. Before that, I'm not certain yet. I'm trying to still get a confirmation, but I might be doing a bar promo or a liquor promo. So, Mark, again, I do work several jobs, so I won't be screwed if the government shuts down or anything. So I'm inviting people out to that, because we got a lot of big hits. A lot of people were like, oh, we like the stuff that you promote. So I'm pretty sure they'll be happy too if I'm selling a bunch of stuff. All of next week, I'm planning on going to more events in the metro area, since this is where I live, and just hit up anywhere and everywhere I can, because I know that because I'm a libertarian, people aren't just going to flock to me. I have to go to them. So I'll go to bars. I'll utilize my job. So when I do these notary signing agent stuff, I have my hat, Doane for U.S. Senate, going on, have my business cards, slide that. Once they start asking me what my hat's about, do things of that nature. So pretty much everywhere is an event for me.
All right, awesome.
Those 2 weeks.
And you've got yard signs for people if they're interested. We got one out in our front yard. So who would they get? They get in contact directly with you for that?
They would get in directly contact with me. Indirect contact with me. Sorry, getting tongue-tied. So they can reach me through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter is a little bit slower for me. I don't have as many followers on there as I do on Facebook or Instagram. And even though it's starting to pick up, so they can definitely reach me there. They can also email me on my website, doneforcolorado@gmail.com. If they know me personally, which my phone number is available. I prefer that they text, just because I've noticed when I put my phone number out there, there's a lot of phone calls, and I can't dictate which one is which. A lot of solicitation for services, a lot of people, saying, fuck you, things of that nature. So I'd rather, I go to voicemail first. Let me see what they're all about. And then I'll either respond via text if they text me first, which I got a bunch of those too. But yeah, we'll leave that alone.
All right. Awesome. So it was just actually almost exactly an hour because I was late. Libertarian Standard Time again. So thank you so much, Raymon. And, I do hope this helps get you more exposure. And I look forward very much to voting for you in November.
Thank you, Caryn Ann, for doing this. I definitely appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Have an awesome night, everyone. And we'll be signing off. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Big L, where size does matter. Subscribe today and help support the show by going to BigLPodcast.com. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.